Tom Cruise's daughter finally broke her silence. For years, the world thought she would stay silent. But today, Tom Cruise's daughter has finally made a move no one expected. This is the part of the story Hollywood never talks about. The distance, the questions, and the truth hidden in plain sight. Stay right here, because what you're about to hear changes everything. From the moment Suri Cruise was born, the world watched her every step under the blinding lights of Hollywood. Yet for years her voice remained hidden behind headlines, rumors, and the intense silence surrounding her relationship with Tom Cruise. But now, for the first time, she appears to be stepping into her own truth, and what has come to light is leaving fans completely stunned. The tension surrounding her upbringing, the years marked by media obsession, the public distance from her father, and the unanswered questions that fueled endless speculation have created one of Hollywood's most mysterious stories. And today, we're diving into the most controversial points of this real-life saga. As we unravel what truly shaped her journey, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because your support literally tells YouTube that this story matters and helps the algorithm push it to more viewers who want the truth behind the glittering facade of celebrity life. If you're able to support the channel even further, consider sending a super thanks. It helps us research, produce, and bring you more deep dives like this one. And if you can't, no problem at all. Just comment below telling us what shocked you the most, because your voice helps keep this conversation alive. Stay with me until the very end, because the final revelation in this story is something you absolutely won't see coming, and trust me, it's going to leave you speechless. From the moment Suri Cruise entered the world on April 18, 2006, her life unfolded under a level of global attention so intense that it blurred the line between celebrity fascination and cultural obsession, because unlike most children born to famous parents, she became a worldwide phenomenon before she took her first steps, with her arrival sparking magazine bidding wars, paparazzi frenzies, and an almost mythical curiosity about the daughter of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, two of the most recognizable figures in Hollywood at the time. Those early years shaped her identity in ways few can truly understand, because while other children learned to explore parks and playgrounds in anonymity, Suri grew up learning to navigate crowds of photographers, loud shutters capturing every blink, and headlines dissecting everything from her baby clothes to her facial expressions. And as she grew older, the narratives surrounding her life became more complex, especially after the sudden high-profile divorce between Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise in the year 2012, a moment that marked one of the most dramatic shifts in her life story, as the world watched Holmes move swiftly to New York City with her 6-year-old daughter, a move that symbolized a new chapter defined by privacy, protection, and an effort to build a sense of normalcy away from Hollywood's relentless spotlight. From that point forward, what the public could see, through verified and uncontested reports, was that Suri's upbringing centered primarily around her mother in Manhattan, while public sightings of her with Tom Cruise disappeared completely, creating a new layer of intrigue and unanswered questions that fueled cultural fascination, though the actual reasons for that distance have never been publicly disclosed by anyone involved, leaving only the factual observation that the father-daughter relationship remained out of public view. Growing up in New York City allowed Suri to slowly step away from the extreme media exposure of her early childhood, and Katie Holmes' parenting approach, with its focus on education, grounding routines, and emotional stability, seemed designed to give her daughter something priceless. The chance to be human, to grow, to breathe, without the weight of global expectations crushing her identity, and as she entered school, participated in dance, explored theater, and developed a growing interest in fashion design, Suri gradually rebuilt her personal world around creativity rather than celebrity, showing signs of a private artistic spirit rather than a public one, a young woman drawn to expression rather than attention. Still, even as she stepped out of the limelight, the fascination around her never fully faded, because the contrast between the spectacle of her early years and the deliberately quiet life she chose later created a story almost cinematic in its emotional arc, the child who had the world's eyes on her growing into the teenager who quietly turned away from the spotlight, refusing social media, avoiding interviews, and maintaining boundaries that are rare for someone with her background. And because of this, Suri Cruise became something unexpected, not a celebrity in the traditional sense, but a symbol of the struggle between private identity and public legacy. A young woman born into a narrative she did not choose, yet determined to write her own story one small, careful step at a time. As she moved through adolescence, the dynamic between mother and daughter became one of the central themes of her life, publicly visible in the small but meaningful glimpses, walking to school together, attending local events, or simply living an ordinary city life that felt miles away from the Hollywood machinery that once claimed her childhood. And through these moments, Katie Holmes appeared to provide not only protection but also a model of independence, artistry, and grounded living, shaping Suri's values in a world where fame could have easily consumed her. Yet even this quieter chapter carried its own emotional weight, because growing up with a famous last name brings pressures no ordinary teenager experiences, from public assumptions to invasive speculation, all of which she navigated not with the loud defiance of someone seeking attention, but with the quiet resilience of someone who understands the power of choosing silence. And when she turned 18 in the year 2024, the moment carried enormous symbolic weight, representing the passage from a childhood shaped by global attention into an adulthood shaped by her own choices. And although she continues to live privately with a focus on education and the arts, the world remains captivated by the question of who Suri Cruise will become, because unlike many celebrity children who pursue the same spotlight that raised them, she has instead carved a path defined by intentional invisibility, showing that sometimes the most compelling story is not the one shouted from red carpets but the one whispered in the spaces where cameras are not allowed. Today, Suri is seen only occasionally in New York City, living a life that reflects independence, normalcy, and self-determination, with verified public glimpses showing a young woman who dresses casually, spends time with friends, participates in school and artistic activities, and appears grounded and self-possessed, developing into someone shaped not by fame but by the desire to escape it. And this evolution, from a globally photographed infant to a quietly independent young adult, is what makes her biography so emotionally powerful, because it touches universal themes. The struggle to define oneself amid external expectations, the challenge of growing up under pressure, the tension between public legacy and private identity, and the resilience required to build a life in the shadows of a name that once commanded headlines across the world. Ultimately, the mystery surrounding Suri Cruise is not about scandal or controversy, but about the quiet, deliberate choices she has made to reclaim her narrative, crafting a life where creativity matters more than fame. Privacy outweighs publicity, and independence becomes the answer to a childhood shaped by cameras. And it is this resilience, this silent strength, this refusal to become what the world expected, that makes her one of the most fascinating figures of her generation, not because of what she reveals, but because of what she chooses not to. As Suri continued growing into her own identity, the contrast between her early life in Hollywood and her adolescence in New York City became even more striking, because while her first years were defined by camera flashes and global fascination, her teenage years were shaped by quieter, more intimate experiences that reflected a young woman determined to live life on her own terms. And one of the most well-documented aspects of this period is the way she flourished in the creative and academic environments Katie Holmes surrounded her with, attending arts-focused schools known for encouraging individuality, self-expression, and discipline, which allowed her to deepen her interests in music, performance, and fashion design. Areas she explored not through publicity but through school projects, recitals, and small-scale artistic collaborations that remained private and grounded. Occasional public glimpses, such as her participation in local performances or her involvement in school musicals, offered soft, fleeting windows into her personal development, showing a young woman who appeared confident on stage yet uninterested in fame, someone who embraced creativity as a personal language rather than a public career path. And these moments formed a subtle but powerful narrative arc. The child once defined by global attention slowly rewriting her story through education, community, and personal growth. At the same time, Katie Holmes's steady presence continued to play a vital role in shaping the environment around her daughter, with public interviews from Holmes over the years hinting at her desire to give Suri a safe, stable childhood free from the pressures of Hollywood, describing motherhood as her greatest priority and emphasizing the importance of protecting her daughter's privacy. And this deliberate shielding became one of the defining elements of Suri's development, allowing her to experience adolescence with far fewer intrusions than her early years suggested would be possible. Yet even as she lived quietly, the symbolic weight of her family name remained a shadow cast across her story, because growing up as the daughter of one of the world's most famous actors inevitably influenced how the world perceived her, even when she chose not to participate in that perception, and this created a dual reality. Privately, she was a young woman navigating school, friendships, and dreams, while publicly, she remained a figure of enduring curiosity, a person whose silence spoke louder than any interview ever could. Another notable public moment that added depth to her evolving identity came when she lent her voice to the opening of her mother's film, Alone Together, singing a cover that appeared in the soundtrack, an artistic contribution that was small yet symbolic, showing that she could engage creatively on her own terms, without entering the machinery of fame, without being pushed into the spotlight, and without compromising her privacy, reinforcing the theme that creativity runs through her life not as a career, but as a form of self-expression. Observers also noted how Suri often appeared walking through New York with an ease that suggested comfort in the city's anonymity, blending into crowds, living among everyday people, far removed from the insulated world of Hollywood privilege, a lifestyle that likely shaped her understanding of normalcy and independence. and as she matured, it became increasingly clear that the life Katie built for her daughter was intentional, mixing artistic environments, urban independence, and emotional grounding, giving Suri the tools to navigate adulthood without being consumed by the public legacy she inherited. Meanwhile, her father's life continued on a global scale, with blockbuster films, international premieres, and worldwide press tours, further emphasizing the public distance between their worlds. A distance that, though publicly observable, remained unexplained by anyone involved, leaving the public to sit with the visible facts rather than imagined narratives. And as Suri stepped into adulthood, the continuation of this silence became part of the emotional complexity of her biography, illustrating the reality that not all stories resolve neatly in public, and some relationships exist in spaces that the world is simply not entitled to see. Today, as a young adult navigating education, independence, and the search for personal purpose, Suri represents a rare archetype in modern celebrity culture. Someone born into overwhelming fame who grew up choosing privacy. Someone who could have stepped into the spotlight but instead built a life defined by ordinary experiences, artistic curiosity, and quiet autonomy. And as she continues to evolve, the world's fascination with her remains rooted not in scandal or controversy, but in the compelling mystery of who she is becoming, a mystery deepened by the resilience, silence, and self-possession that have shaped her journey from childhood until now. The impact of fame on her identity, the way Katie Holmes protected her through one of the most complicated divorces in Hollywood, and the uncertain future of her relationship with her father, leave viewers with a sense of mystery that keeps them watching, listening, and wondering, making her one of the most quietly captivating figures of her generation, not because of what she reveals, but because of how deliberately she remains unseen. As we reach the end of this story, one thing becomes unmistakably clear. The journey of Suri Cruise is far more complex, emotional, and quietly powerful than the world ever imagined. Because while the title of this video speaks to the idea of breaking silence, the truth is that her silence itself has always been the message, a deliberate choice, a sign of strength, and a reflection of a young woman who has grown up navigating fame she never asked for, distance that shaped her identity, and a legacy she continues to redefine on her own terms. And through each moment we explored today, from her earliest days under relentless public attention, to her childhood protected by Katie Holmes, to her deeply private teenage years in New York City, to her emergence into adulthood with independence and intention, we begin to understand why the world remains so captivated by her story. Because it reminds us that behind every headline is a human being searching for a sense of self. So if you enjoyed walking through this emotional and mysterious chapter of her life, make sure to tap that like button and subscribe to the channel, because your support truly helps YouTube understand that this kind of thoughtful, deeply researched storytelling matters, and it pushes our videos to more viewers who love exploring the unseen paths behind famous lives. And if you are still here watching until the end, take a moment to comment below and tell us what part of Suri's journey stood out to you the most, what surprised you, what moved you, and what you think the future might hold for her as she continues shaping her own identity far away from the Hollywood spotlight. And now, do not leave just yet, because the video appearing on your screen right now is even more compelling, more emotional, and more captivating than the one you just watched. So click on it and I will meet you there for another story you will not forget.